Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined as always by my good buddies, Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
And I have some other good buddies here who are joining us. They are good buddies in real life, but also competitors in the world of podcasts because they have a tremendous podcast called What Yin's Talking About. Did I get that right? They are Kyle
yes,
and
you did.
Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle and or Greg, tell us about your podcast.
Jeff, thank you for having us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what she's talking about is the conversation about the Pittsburgh Steelers social media conversation where we expose all the hot and toxic takes among Steelers fans or in so-called fans, and I guess just frenemies as well.
Well, basically, I mean, it's people go on to social media and they yell about the team, whether they're fans or not, and it's such a toxic, horrible place continuously. And our podcast seeks to reflect that and try to make the conversation better, which, of course, is an impossible task, but hopefully an entertaining one.
That's awesome.
And you know, right now is our special coverage, in fact, because we're celebrating Steelers. You know, everyone else is doing March Madness. We're doing Steelers March Madness, aka March Sadness, in which we're taking the 64 saddest moments in Steelers history and having them face off until there's only one, Highlander style or March Madness style.
That is
and you
awesome.
might wonder why are fans, like us doing a thing about, the worst things that happen in team history. And that's because it's better than talking about mock drafts. It's better than talking about the same stupid thing that everyone else is. So absolutely, it's an improvement upon that.
Kyle, Greg, have you guys found that there is a particular year that stands out, and does it have its own chunk of the bracket that you just segregated it off to this is the year of 2013. It's just particularly brutal, or whatever particular year it was.
Well, Kyle actually broke it. Yeah, no, you go first.
You might understand it more simpler than my complex algorithm.
Well, I was just going to say what Kyle did, it was so smart, was that he broke it into the actual moments themselves, and so many of them happened within bigger games that the team did not win. We're of the opinion, I don't want to speak for Kyle, but I believe you are, that losing in a conference championship game is so much worse than losing in a Super Bowl. You lose in a Super Bowl, you've won your conference, everyone gets a T-shirt, everyone gets a picture with a trophy, even if it's not the trophy. Whereas in the conference championship, you lose that, no one gets to go anywhere or do anything, and only the true fans remember. So many of the moments we covered as in the worst things were losses in games that are very big, but for the most part in our culture have been lost to the sands of time.
Yeah.
Or all those moments, things that make you go, as we used to say, right? No one. Okay, no CNC.
Oh, wait, no,
we remembered it.
Yeah.
We remembered it.
Yeah, we're there.
We said that all the time.
Funny, I get it. Yeah.
And then I would also say, friends, how many of us have them? That's right, friends.
Yeah.
So I want to say, if there are sports non-fans who are running from the show right now, don't do that, because Kyle and Greg are also stand-up comics, very funny people, and this discussion may likely expand to just things generic to Pittsburgh in general that are not sports related. So
I won't bring up another sports man for the rest of the show. How about that?
Okay.
Or woman or person.
Okay. All right.
Or
But make sure to tell our listeners again about your podcast, because they may need special assistance in spelling yins in order to find it at in the Podverse.
Yins is a noun, Y-I-N-Z. Noun, also synonym with you-ins or yous or y'all.
Okay. All right, sweet. So it is the Mount Rushmore of Pittsburgh is the topic. You are the guests, Kyle and Greg, so you get to go first. So have at it.
Greg, may I take the first?
I was sure hoping you would.
May I be the Barry Bonds of our? I said no more sports reference. Okay.
I was going to say Andrew McCutcheon, but yeah, that's fine too.
Okay. All right. Well, people may not know this, but I think that maybe the biggest in 1,000 years, or let's just say 100 years, the biggest cultural impact, or the thing that may still be around that was born in Pittsburgh, may be the zombie movie, the genre of zombie, and I think the birth of modern zombie, or at least the the archetype of the zombie movie was born in Pittsburgh, and I'm putting George Romero on the Mount Rushmore, the director, of course, of Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead.
Yes, of course.
Well,
Night of
right.
the Living Dead down at Westmoreland County. Was that the graveyard? It starts there. It was filmed in the area, and that's the Westmoreland County Mall where they did Day of the Dead. And yeah, zombies are. I mean, it's. I know it comes to technically from the hoodoo religion or something like that, but they are a uniquely Pittsburgh creation. That's an excellent choice.
And was Romero's big task convincing people outside of Pittsburgh that this wasn't indeed a documentary? Or
well, not to spoil it, if you haven't seen it yet, I mean, gosh, you can buy it off of a grocery store rack. But real villains aren't the zombies. Maybe it's the Yinzers. Maybe if this took place in Manhattan or somewhere else, maybe that's a different villain. But certainly the without the Western Pennsylvania trope, maybe it's a less villainous story.
Cool.
And maybe then Romero could have hung on to the copyright too.
Yeah.
What is the tale that supposedly put
such a nice pick? My first thought of this is how this really opened the door for so many like action movies in the future that just took glee from killing like a massive amount of like mindless people and creatures and aliens. Just made it so easy. You could just kill anybody. I think of like all these, superhero movies where they have like this onslaught of, bugs and creatures and things.
Yeah, it's the Chitauri, the Necro army. Yeah.
Whatever it is, it comes into town and people just kill it. And they think of them as just some sort of like mindless zombie or slave or something that doesn't have a real brain. So it's like, it's not a real person. It doesn't have well, they're kind of dressed up like somebody. It doesn't really have a family. You can just slaughter it. And I love that zombie movies, this pick in general, just like really opened the door to just Marvel dominating things for the past 20 years.
Okay, so Michael and Richard, what's your response?
Yeah, I'll go first, Michael, if that's kosher with you.
Sure.
And I am under no obligation to not mention sports people, places, or things. So I will go with the unquestionably the greatest sports moment in Pittsburgh history. I'm, of course, talking about the release of the movie The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. No, I'm not talking about that. I am talking, of course, about the Immaculate Reception. 1972 playoffs between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the then Oakland Raiders. Just as if you're not a sports fan, it's a fourth down play where Terry Bradshaw throws a pass intended for Frenchie Fuqua, the fullback. He is hit by Jack Tatum. The ball ricochets, and Franco Harris mysteriously appears as if teleported to pick the ball up right before it hits the ground and run in for the game-winning touchdown. It has been voted the number one play in NFL history countless times. I think what intrigues me about this is that a lot of cities have their own single play or single sports moment that kind of summarizes sports in that city. And Michael, I guess for us in Los Angeles, it'd probably be the Kirk Gibson home run?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
So, and for me, when I think of Pittsburgh sports, I can think of a lot of great achievements, great players, but this is a very specific moment that sort of just, even though I wasn't born when this play happened, it's still such a legendary play.
Is it considered that within the confines of Pittsburgh, gentlemen?
Oh yeah, I mean it's when you go to formerly Heinz Field, now Acrisure Stadium. There is a interactive display and inside the stadium itself, where the entire you hear the call and it all lights up in front of you. What I didn't realize as a child growing up and hearing about it from my parents, the way stories are passed down through generations, is that the rules at the time were if the ball could not bounce off of an opposing player and then you catch it and have it still be in play, and none of the camera angles that survived, allegedly there are those that have been lost to time, showed that it did not hit Tatum. It didn't hit the ground. It was a perfectly legal play, even though that's part of the mystique of it, is that there are whether it's conclusive or not, and all that kind of thing. But yes, I mean, it's considered within Pittsburgh to be that. It very well could be, the only home run in the bottom of the ninth, the Game 7 of the World Series in 1960, Bill Mazeroski against the Yankees. But the Immaculate Reception, and in large part because of the dynasty that followed, is very much considered the number one play there. Yes.
And here's how you know its cultural impact. If you ever visit Pittsburgh and you land at the airport, they've got 2 statues greeting you, and it's George Washington, who was a young general turned president, and Franco Harris next to each other. Now, you tell me the difference. I mean, one owned the Bengals, one owned
slaves. I love it. I'm sorry, Kyle. That was your punchline. I apologize for.
No, that's fine. I'm glad you took it there. I wasn't sure how far I could.
Okay.
I think this play too also just really benefits from just amazing branding. I mean, just the name itself has been so iconic. You think of like other like sports teams, and they try to put their own spin on it. Not to kind of crap on Philadelphia, but everything they do with like the tush push that they have over there that they've tried to rebrand, the brotherly shove, is just really, really sad compared to the type of play that this has been known for. I mean, whether it's what was it, the drive, like these iconic things that come out and just stand the test of time. And I think that has really kind of played into its kind of legend over, 40, 50 years? Oh my God. How long?
60 years, 51 years, right? 52 years this year.
All right. Hey, let's go back to our What Yin's Talking About podcasters. And what is your second choice, gentlemen?
Greg, go ahead.
You want me to go? Okay. I'll go. I mean, it's you mentioned the name of the team. I mean, it's hard to go if we're going to the all-time Steel. That's what put the city on the map.
Oh, okay.
That's why there were 3 rivers. That's why all of this exists. So much of why so many people came to the city, and it grew up in the first place as big as it did was the Steel. That wasn't necessarily perfect for the city the whole time. I mean, so much of the story of the 70s and all that were jobs leaving when steel was no longer so big, or they found other options. But the city rebounded from that as well, and now has been America's most livable city for like 5 of the last 15 years or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's the reason we're talking about so much about the city, and it's so many generations came there in the first place was steel. I mean, one time I was trying to write a TV pilot that took place in a late 1800s blast furnace, and just so much of my research came about that Pittsburgh was like, it's a major city now, but at the time it was one of the biggest cities in the country because people were coming from all over the world there because there were jobs. I mean, it was 12 hours a day, but they were jobs. And, everything, so much of what's happened in Pittsburgh since, and it being an area, comes initially from steel.
To the point where in your stockings, you get a yard of steel in your stockings. It's just abundant. Coal in your stockings. It's like, I've been good this year. What? My bituminous?
Yay, cooled. It's the red hot stuff that's like really hard to deal with.
You want to talk about steel is kind of a innovation of man. However, you needed the tools of nature to come. You needed the coal near the waterways and the triumvirate of the Ohio River, that could ship things all the way down into the Mississippi. It was
the confluence.
It's a confluence of man-made technology with what Mother Nature blessed us with.
I love it. You guys should, after you do your podcast, form a children's museum or something like that, educational experiences. But yeah, it's the auspicious
within a few hundred feet of a children's museum.
All right, Michael and Richard, what do you got?
Our next choice, or my next choice, I don't know if this is Richard's too, but whatever.
I'm yoked to you now, Michael. So.
Thank you. I don't know if I'll ever go to Pittsburgh, but I feel like I've been there for how much I've listened to famed podcaster, sports talk guy, Dave Damashek, who you guys all know.
Oh, there you go.
I love me some Dave. Dave, I've been listening to for probably, I don't know, 15 years. And I feel so connected to the city of Pittsburgh because of the way he has just this intense love for his city, even though he's moved out of it. The feeling that he just generates when he talks about the Steelers or the Pirates, less the Buccos, but and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The way he talks about like Primanti sandwiches, the way he talks about just everything is like, I've enjoyed this city that I don't know if I'll ever visit just because of I don't have any. There you go. Look at that.
How'd you get turned on to him 15 years ago?
I must have listened to him, unfortunately, now these days, when he was like part of Adam Carolla show, and then he and another pal of his, Dave Feeney, had the Daves of Thunder podcast, which was Dave and Dave, which is very funny. But that only lasted a few years. And then he went on to like the NFL Network, where he talked about football and pies and nonsense and ranking foods and all these bits that he's done over the years. But I think because of he's like this LA transplant that never got over where he came from. And I think so much we see in Los Angeles, I'll speak to that, is you have these friends and people who have moved here from someplace else that can't let go of their hometown roots. Like we have a good friend, former guest of the show, Scott, who's from Kansas City, much like Jeffrey here. And Scott is just as a Kansas City person with the love of his small burg as possible. And I feel that same sort of affinity when I listen to Dave talk about the Monongahela and Allegheny and the Ohio River. And I'm sure you've heard his bits just coming in and how he talks about the Steelers and the steel that built the battleships that defeated the Nazis and all this stuff that, his constant hate for the Baltimore Ravens and all that stuff. Like everything about him like feels like so true. But he's also this guy that's been here in LA for so long that I think he I don't know. I think he understands both worlds, which I think that is I don't know. It's a really appreciative, but I think I've understood the city a little bit because of this one particular person and their love for the city.
Well, that's really cool. I feel like that for me, I don't know, like John Waters is kind of my entree to Baltimore, and it sounds like Dave Damashek is kind of somebody who kind of helps you see the wonderful aspects of that city. I would be worried if I was Damashek is now kind of up against a mineral in terms of iron. So, but that's just like so
Steve Roosevelt of your Rushmore. That's the very current pick.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, hey, we are at our halftime, and we're going to ask you to follow two podcasts. First, the Mount Rushmore podcast, which can be heard on all available platforms, and we have our little social media stuff out on all the different things: Truth Social, Periscope, all the current ones,
MySpace,
yeah, all the up-to-date ones, Friendster, and then also we'd love for you to follow what Yin's talking about. Where can listeners find this podcast?
That's a great question. Well, can you find it? That's I don't know. I when I search Yins, usually is the easiest way, although there are others out there now. But we're on all the things. If you're into Steelers, you got to be into Steelers. That's the warning. If you're not into Steelers, you're not going to be into the pod. So if you are into Steelers, what Yin's talking about, you should already know. If if you're into Steelers and you haven't heard of us yet, then that's our fault.
Right. Well, although you can find us on YouTube.
Sweet. So you are a video podcast as well. So
YouTube, but if you want audio, we have all those platforms as well, including iHeartRadio or I Hate Radio. Whatever.
Okay. Awesome, gents. Well, now we're going to get into our second half, and so I guess it's back to Greg maybe for the third choice of Mount Rushmore of Pittsburgh. Kyle for Mount Rushmore of Pittsburgh.
Me? All right. I want to go to No one ever calls him Pittsburgh Jesus, but maybe it's time to trademark it now, right
Oh,
here.
you beat me to it.
There is a soul and a spirit that emanates from Pittsburgh across the entire country. Maybe not as bright today as it was 20 to 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I'm talking about Dr. Fred Rogers.
Oh,
Mr.
There we
yay.
go. Yeah.
Yay. All right. Why did
we discussed Michael and I discussed this before the
Ooh.
podcast, so that was on our list of potential choices. For
Oh,
sure.
and why did you choose Fred Rogers, Kyle? And we'll find out why Michael Richard did not.
It's just the philosophy, it might be a lost philosophy now. You only see it maybe on some tweets in your timeline once and again, but there is a philosophy behind his show, and it is one of inclusion and love and everything that is not television today, or culture today, or there could be more. How come we can't reboot or spin off Mr. Rogers? Instead, we've got 10 Fast and Furious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I think he's also, wasn't he an ordained, or
Yeah,
he was
minister,
minister, yeah,
who was essentially he was assigned to television. So we think of all these people who their egos have propelled them to have the visibility that television provides. And this gentleman was so humble that was something that he just said, Fred, you got to do this. Okay, I guess. So there's not many of those voices up there. So, okay, Richard and Michael, why do you hate Mr. Rogers?
I don't think there is any hate whatsoever. I think that
on the ropes.
Boy,
they're waffling.
but against the ropes. I think that there is definitely an extension of his brand, and his gentleness is extended into so many different shows. My son has grown up watching
Daniel Tiger.
Thank you, Daniel Tiger. And but unfortunately he couldn't go back. Like, we tried to get him to go back and watch some old Mr. Rogers things, but he understood, no, I like the cartoon Tiger. And he's like, yeah, but it's the same. The song's kind of the same, and they came from the land of make-believe. And he's like, no, I'm done. At 2.5 years old, he's checked out of Mr. Rogers because of, unfortunately, he's not an animated tiger. But I think that his brand of understanding and gentleness and kindness really does reverberate, and there's something that with a toddler, we loved him watching anytime.
I would say that is one thing that I, in hindsight, think was very charming, but I would say Mr. Rogers sucks at puppets. Like King Friday. They all they all sound like your first attempt at coming up with a voice to try to fool the pizza delivery guy or something like that. Like, King Friday kind of talk like this. Like, oh, come on, man.
That's the best take I've ever heard.
It's like what did you complain about Joey Ramone's guitar licks? It was punk rock for puppets.
Yeah, he was so punk rock. But as an individual, yes, I mean, just the embodiment of kindness and being a calm voice in this just chaos of television. So
I can't believe they don't stream those on Netflix now. Come on, we should be streaming Fred Rogers over TikTok. Like, it should be a permanent live feed.
Or like the way people do Bob Ross on YouTube. Like, those are all everywhere now. I mean, I'm not sure who has the rights and how, but it does seem like if there was ever something that, both kids and adults that may be a little nervous and anxious about things, what could possibly be more calming than having Fred Rogers on in the background?
I met Mr. McFeely when I was young, so
really?
I don't know.
Wow.
If he's definitely on the Mount Rushmore of postal carriers.
Okay, so Michael and Richard, going into your
third choice, Iron City beer.
There you go.
Now, there are a lot of beers that people in their particular city associate with themselves. In Chicago, it's Old Style. I guess in Philadelphia, it's Yingling, correct?
Yes.
Would that be correct? Here in Los Angeles, I guess we've got Golden Road. That's probably the closest to a local brand that we've got. But I don't know that there is a beer city connection that is more prevalent than Iron City and Pittsburgh. It's just the two seem to go hand in hand. And I don't know what that says about the city of Pittsburgh. I mean, maybe old Milwaukee with Milwaukee, but that's because they're all alcoholics there. And here's the thing: I've as being a connoisseur of cheap beer, I've had Iron City before, and you know what? It's fine.
Wow.
It's good. It's a good beer, but so's Old Style, so's Golden Road, so's okay, maybe not Old Milwaukee, but but it's just something I think about. There's something about beer that people take civic pride in their city that is, and people do it about their sandwiches, and they do it about their pizza and about any other food and kind of drink. But for some reason with beer, I mean, if you did a blind taste test with most people, I don't know that they would be able to tell an Iron City from another brand of beer. I don't know that. But if you tell them this is Iron City, I think a lot of people in Pittsburgh would be very protective of it.
Okay. Wow. All right.
When I worked, I'll try to make this a long story short. When I worked in Manhattan and I lived in New Jersey and worked in the overnight shift, there was one distributor in Manhattan that had Iron City, and it was like a block south of Houston. So I worked in Midtown, worked the overnight shift, get off at like 9 a.m., go downtown when this distributor opened, and they sold aluminum bottles, which was kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Case of aluminum bottles of iron onto the subway and then onto the bus back to New Jersey. And I would probably do that once a season for like the playoffs or something. But so that was like 2002, 2003.
So it's a little slice of home for you.
Exactly. Like a case of it. I could drink a case of you, I think Joni Mitchell once said.
Yeah, it does. I think there's something to be said for the local water, the local flavor, the terroir of the area being captured in a.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of terroir in Iron City. I think. What is that? Cool. Is that a preservative?
Yeah, sure. All right. So, okay, this is now Kyle and Greg. It's your chance to state your last choice, and then Michael and Richard will be able to rebut.
Oh, geez. I mean, this is tough. So feel free to shoot me down, Kyle. I mean, it's my initial thoughts were something like Kennywood or something like those Permane Brothers sandwiches. But at the risk of something too vague and plain, I just have to say Pittsburgh sports, just in general. I mean, that's the thing that unites all of us across the entire country. I mean, you were talking about Damashek earlier. There's so many people, not just in Los Angeles, but elsewhere, that had to leave the city for one reason or another. And for 3 hours every Sunday or other days, if you can actually spend your time watching the Pirates or the Penguins, it's like you're home again. I mean, it's, for apparently the first part of the century, no matter what, as Pittsburgh, went in the boom of Steel, the Pirates were good and the other teams either didn't exist or were terrible. And then when Steel left, that's when the Steelers dynasty rose. And then in the 90s, when the .com boom came to Pittsburgh too, the Penguins had maybe their best teams. It's the old Howard Cosell line. When you play Pittsburgh, you play the entire city. I've lived in a lot of different places, and I've been there when their sports teams are doing well, and it's just not the same, whether it's because the cities are bigger or for whatever reasons that I don't know. But at the risk of being too vague, I will just say Pittsburgh sports in general.
No, that's great. Michael, we were texting before the show, and Michael had a thought, and I don't want to steal it from you, so I'll let you.
Oh God, which thought?
Oh, it was about just sort of Pittsburgh having 3 teams, pro teams.
Yeah, I think that Pittsburgh is the ultimate in like Nepo cities, and all these past glories have come down over the years to a city the size that's like the 68th ranked largest city by population in the United States. There's no way that any new team would be started there if there was not this kind of great tradition of sports because of the Three Rivers and the importance that Pittsburgh has played in the history of America. But if like Pittsburgh just sprang out of nowhere, and it was the size it was, I was wondering, like, would people have like, would the Daniel Stearns or the David Stearns and the
Or the Daniel
Roger
Stearns.
Goodells and the Daniel Stearns and the Joe Pesci's and the all the other people trying to break into your houses. I was just thinking of just that size of a city and how it has been so grandfathered in with an historical importance to like have these three teams and to have a population that like
supports it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of games to play for a relatively kind of mid-sized town. I don't know, but I think it must speak to the black and gold that kind of crosses all three teams, that kind of singular bonding experience of being a medium-sized town that you can kind of wear everything at the same time to every sporting event, and it seems like you're gonna fit in. I don't know.
30% of the GDP is dependent on sports bars. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's also what is it? Because I've heard these arguments in the context of the Pirates and why they should spend more money because the owner refuses to. But it's like if you expand out from the city to like Western Pennsylvania, it goes up slightly in those population rankings. Not a lot. Everything you said is still valid, but it goes up just a little bit if you include like up to Erie or something like that. I forget. Someone was arguing this with me once in the context of that's why the Pirates should have more money than they do, and I was like, that's not about population, that's about one guy.
Right. Before we get off the Pittsburgh sports topic, I want to just get your guys' opinion as Pittsburghers. Yager or Lemieux, if you had to do a Mount
Lemieux.
Rushmore. Really?
I mean, it's Yager's an incredible talent, but Lemieux was almost. I mean, I was fortunate enough and blessed enough to see them both play in person, and Yager's incredible, one of the greatest players to ever step on skates. Lemieux was something genuinely supernatural. I mean, I'll never understand to a man who was 6'5" and the best player on the ice can simply just disappear and reappear in another place. I mean, the goalie scores the game winner of Game 2 of the '92 final against the Blackhawks is always an example I think of that. And the thing is, I also know this because we just had the ceremony. Yager would agree with me on that.
Yeah, that was the reason why I thought of it. I knew that you just had the ceremony for Yager a couple of weeks ago. So, okay.
But Yager still has some more games left. He's going to try to catch up to those numbers.
He's playing for that team he owns somewhere over there in whatever we're calling the Czech Republic now. Yes.
Yeah, Jeff. Jaromir Yager is like 52 now. Yeah, and he's still playing.
Oh wow.
In Europe.
Wow. Okay, that's exceptional. That's amazing.
He's still playing in Europe as well. So
it's all the terroir that he drank. So Michael and Richard are going to do their last choice, but in the interim, during, feel free, Kyle and Greg, to tune out because I want you to tell me about music from Pittsburgh before we leave. Because I'm looking at I Googled.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jeff Hopkins.
All right.
Thank you so much. You have led into my final topic, which is more of a question, which as the judge, you've teed it up beautifully. How have there been 0 bands that have ever come out of Pittsburgh?
Well,
and like I was looking down the list and I was like, okay, Lorelei, I know them. And I was like, oh no, I just know the Cocteau Twins song Lorelei. And I was like, okay, what was the other one that I saw? It was the Juliana Theory. And I was like, oh no, I'm thinking of the Juliana Hatfield 3. And then I was like, okay, I've got to go as far back as the Dell Vikings with like Come Go With Me and Whispering Bells to think of like to find a band that I recognize from Pittsburgh. So how is it that was just all of the funds gone into sports and 0 funds went into like a music production or music classes?
A few artists have slipped through the cracks of your awareness.
Please educate me.
Let me bring to your attention to a 90s band, Rusted Roots.
Oh God.
Sail Away. What was this? Not Sail Away. It comes what was the song?
Send Me On My Way. Send Me On My Way was the name of that song.
They had a flute player, I think, or they had one of those.
They might have had 2 flute players.
Yeah,
there were like 8
jazz
dudes
band
on that
or something,
stage.
Now
Mhm.
this isn't a proper Metro Pittsburgh band, but live was certainly a central Pennsylvania artist. If the locals in Pittsburgh, of course, all know a band called the Clarks,
Mhm.
who thriving on the scene for a
Decades.
quarter
Mhm.
But the king of Pittsburgh music and the biggest hit maker is one Donnie Iris, whose
That's right.
song "Oh Leah" was a number hit in the 70s.
Jeff, please find a picture for our YouTube people. Please find a picture of Donnie Iris,
Donnie Iris coming right up.
because he is the least. If it's who I'm thinking of, he is the least rock star looking rock star. He
That would
basically
be correct, Richard. Yes.
he basically looks like Earl Camembert,
Oh,
the SCTV newscaster,
Yeah.
brought to life
Oh,
as a
goodness.
rock star.
That's funny.
Wow.
He does. He absolutely looks like, yeah, Mel's rock pile.
Rock pile, yes.
Kyle, I would say you win the award for not debating a point, or debating a point for the other side with what you just did. You took the shovel they were digging and just dug deeper.
I just imagine that there is just like a Pittsburgh school board person that has been fighting like against like big sports for like just against the jocks for since the 1960s. Just like, can we get any money to develop any sort of guitar playing or any sort of like musical anything? And they're like, no, we need some new pads. So
Yeah.
we're not gonna. No one's gonna make any music here.
Yeah. Well, okay.
If you want to help the Pittsburgh artist, you can stream my bands on.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, what a good.
Yeah.
song.
Well, let's plug Kyle. You plug Greg and Kyle. Plug anything you want to right now, because we're going to wrap it up with the announcement of the winners.
I mean,
Awkward.
I've got 2 stand-up albums on Spotify or iHeart or whatever you listen to, Pandora. Listen to, if you like stand-up comedy, listen to Kyle Kreis is Fake News or King Size. Those are my 2 albums. I mean, if you really want to listen, if you want to dig up my rock bands, just look on my website or something. I don't think anyone's going to be that curious.
Awesome. And Greg, I know you were also appearing at a career day at a local grade school or something like that.
Yes, I'll on Zoom. At not local, it'll be in Washington D.C. apparently. At what is it? I'll be in Alaska for the Alaska Before You Die Comedy Festival, the first week of April, and I'm at Comedy Heights in San Diego on the third Friday and Saturday in May.
Man, that's awesome.
I heard the comedy festival is a trap for vampires. They bring you up when it's dark season.
It's 30 days of night. That's why I'm going to be. I'm actually performing in the Stand Up Pants Down show, so I'll be performing in my underwear on one of those shows. It's actually not a joke, so I will be doing that.
That's exciting.
So if you're listening in the Anchorage area and you're like, that guy's head looks all right, I bet he's funny in his underwear. Come on out Friday night, April 5th. Mm-hmm.
All right, gents. So this has been a tremendous opportunity. But here are the winners. The Mount Rushmore of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. It's not fitting in there, is it?
I mean,
It's fine enough.
This is the top 4 zombie movies. George, this is pretty much almost a clean sweep for Kyle and Greg.
What
zombie movies.
Who judged that?
Oh, sorry. Let me just update it. Sorry, update it. Did it update? Not music. Okay, Michael and Richard get one in there. Not music. So sorry, I hadn't hit save. The Mount Rushmore of Pittsburgh points. Steele, Fred Rogers, because we love him, and then Michael and Richard get a point for not music, which is which is a thing. So gentlemen, what Yin's talking about is coming. It's this March Sadness. Is that what's coming up? March Sadness.
Yeah, March Sadness. If you're, I mean, you got to really, not even Steeler fans are going to be into this. You have to be into like Steeler history and stuff. Why? I don't know what I'm doing. This is like the cosplay comedy of Steeler podcast.
Self-sabotage is a good trait. Yeah. Don't let other people sabotage yourself. Just do it to yourself. That's right. Well, I appreciate you gentlemen coming on the podcast, and I hope others who are all of our followers migrate over to yours and enjoy that. And this has been the Mount Rushmore of Pittsburgh. I'm always Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.
I'm Kyle. Thank you guys so much.
Yes. All right. Take it easy. Have a good night.
Cool. All right.